Thanks for tuning in to the Better Business Podcast, where down-to-earth entrepreneurs like you and me get to share what it's like running their own business. If you'd like to get involved, listen in at the end of this episode to find out how. So let's hear from today's guest. Hello and welcome to the Better Business Podcast, where I talk to business owners about the highs and lows, the pitfalls and successes, the agony and the ecstasy of running a business. My name is Justin Challoner, and with me today is Jonathan Southgate from Sterling Southgate, and we're going to be finding out all about what he does and how he runs his business. So hi Jonathan, how are you and how's your week been so far?
Hi, Justin. Thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it. Yeah, the week's been okay so far. It's started a little bit slow, but we're starting to get some momentum now. So yeah.
Good stuff. So Jonathan, can you tell the audience about yourself, your business and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Jonathan Southgate. I'm the founder of Sterling Southgate Mortgages. Clearly the name there, we basically help people with their property funding. We also help people protect that as well. So we help people get paid to be as smoothly as possible. That's it.
Okay. And who are your kind of main customers? Who are the kind of people that you
Yeah.
tend to work with?
So we serve four predominant markets. We do help anyone who will come to us really, and anyone who sort of needs a mortgage. But the four reasons people typically come to us: if they're self-employed, there's some nuances there. They have income, and sometimes have different structures to their employment. So it might be or whatever that might look like. So there's some complexity there, and not every lender that we deal with serves that correctly. So we basically help people get that, try and create a bit of clarity in that market. So the self-employed market's one of the markets. I'm self-employed, but partner's self-employed, so we really do get that. The other market we serve is blended families, so people who are creating a new family, or if they've separated and they're looking at buying on their own. So blended families is a market for us. Again, looking at sort of the numbers on that, it's something like 2 million households in the UK that now or blended families. The big market out there that's pretty underserved, and a lot of people don't think they can get funding because of legacy issues with that, or not sure how to really show the income and outgoings they've got. And the third is we deal with people with multiple income streams. So in the gig economy today, you may have a main job, then a little side hustle, and so we make that side hustle turn into real money and bricks and mortar. So again, a good example, we've helped somebody who had a little bit of benefit income, some PAYE income, some maintenance income, and some profit. So quite a broad stream of income, all getting them to what they needed every single month. We were able to clarify that and give them certainty when buying a property. Fourth, because of my background of 20 years in property and finance, is unusual property. When I started out as a country estate agent down in Somerset, so I've seen the weird and the wonderful, the farms and the farmhouses, and the barn conversions and all those things, and some of the grand design stuff as well. So that's another niche of ours.
Obviously, at the moment, we've got a kind of an interesting global situation. I mean, at the time of recording this, who knows what things will be like when this actually goes out? I mean, something else might have happened, but we live in a very kind of a time of upheaval, certainly, or a time where a lot of stuff is very uncertain. So, how is that affecting the mortgage market, and how is that affecting kind of the work that you do and the people you work with?
It's affecting the market hugely.
Yeah.
So since everything started in the end of February, March into April, there's been huge swathes of changes in interest rates. They've been hiked up by some lenders, they've been reduced by others. But it's been a real mess out there, and it's been gone very, very quickly. We're now starting to see lenders come back to the party a little bit. And as I say, at the time of recording, tomorrow we've got Bank of England base rate decision, so that will have some bearing on the trajectory. So I mean, it's been really tough for a lot of clients, and again, a lot of people in our situation, self-employment. People are less likely to commit to projects. People are less likely to commit to spending money on something if there's uncertainty in the market. But wherever there's a problem, there's always an opportunity. So the opportunity for us has been, try and make sure clients and get things sooner, and to make sure that we've got those things locked in good time for them.
Yeah, yeah. So do you so would you say that you create a little bit of a niche for yourself? You're sort of you've found a kind of an angle that you can take with the business that you've got those kind of customers you're looking for. Has that sort of happened naturally or intentionally, or how did that work out?
Well, when I first started the business, and I think this is the one thing that I would always say to anyone who's got a business, don't be afraid of niche to fit where you are in your life.
Hmm.
So when I first started out in business, it was to professionals, solicitors, people like that we would support because that's where they came from. But now as my life's evolved and the lives around me have evolved, I think where if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So identifying a
Hmm.
niches within that is important. Any business. Otherwise, you are just noise. That's the that's the part that I've learned very hard, the hard way over the last years. Down there saying, I can help with your remortgage. And are you speaking to anyone? However many million mortgage holders in the UK, and you've got to be able to cut the noise and speak to people that you want to work. I think they
Hmm.
see value in the value add of a self-employed person coming and getting a mortgage from us. Know that we're going to get to the right answer, and that's a yes or no. The same with blended families. The rigmarole that comes with separation and divorce, and then finding and then setting up a new family or blending a new family. Ultimately, we understand that we get the bones of that a lot more. So yeah, you're right. I think important nature is high. It doesn't mean you can't serve people to get people that are employed, to get people that are happily married, to get all
Hmm.
sorts of people with all sorts of assets. Um, but yeah, I mean the niche has changed in years, but that's currently.
Yeah. Um, so in terms of your business, have you have you always done this? What's your sort of background in terms of the stuff you've done before, and how did you kind of end up where you are now?
That's a great question. So I mean, I know I don't look it, but 22 years ago now I started working. And I started out as an estate agent. I left college, um, having sort of played music and wanting to sort of be in a band and go on tour and stuff, and then very quick that that wasn't what it was intended for me. So I quickly went up to the local golf course with a CV and just handed a CV out who walked out the front doors. Um, and one of the people who walked out the front doors was a guy called Andrew Perry, and he ran a local estate agency, and he said, "Look, yeah, okay, I'll give you a trial." And so he trialed it, and I was put on an apprenticeship, and with £3,300 a year in pay. That's fine, but to go on into apprenticeship. Spent a year with that business, then got poached to work in another business, then went into a negotiator role. And within 5 years, I was managing two firms in London, two offices for a firm in London, having made that jump. I was quite ambitious when I was younger, and I think quite sort of about what I wanted.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, partway through that, we had the recession that was sort of leading up to 2006, 2007. 2006, I launched a property development business, like building um, and renovating property. And then obviously the early 20s and having the bank breathing down your neck saying we want our money back. So that kind of then led me back towards a state agency from
Hmm.
property development, and I was an estate agent for the last 8, 10 years of my career. And then moved into something a bit niche again, which is business sales. So I used to buy and sell businesses, so care homes, care businesses, things like that, convenience stores, agents where I started, and moved into healthcare. And the truth of the matter with that was, when you're buying and selling care homes, you're looking at the numbers, not the people involved.
Hmm.
And it was one of those moments where we had a care home that was being closed in the Rhondda Valley, and and needed to find a buyer within weeks, or the residents would be moved on basis. We couldn't afford the buyer. The residents started to be moved out. And I know this is meant to be an upbeat podcast, but this is right.
Yeah.
But I remember going and seeing the care manager, and they said that the survival rate of these 70 odd residents. So people being moved into all sorts of places miles away from their homes, and it just cut me. Like, I can't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to be in front of people in their living rooms, helping, supporting, and giving them advice, and that's when I went into finance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to work for a time in Taunton in Somerset, and then set up my own business 4 years later.
Yeah. So how is it kind of gone from the start, when you started the business? What have been sort of have there been any bumps in the road? Have there been any, detours you've had to make? How has that been?
Yeah, so I mean, I started off my mobile phone and about 1,200 quid in the account, and just like said, okay, right, I've got a mortgage, I need to do a business. So I just started out reaching out to friends and family, and it sort of snowballed from there. Um, the early parts were the easy part for me because it was, there was nothing to lose. I mean, it was
Mm,
literally just you're going out there and doing the thing, and you're just so focused, determined every single day to get something off the ground. Um, I then got to a point where we started employing people, started bringing advisors in, and then that peaked. It was April, May last year when we had a team of 5, and subsequently we scaled the business right back.
right.
So I'm back in this position of starting that process, the bumps in the road. And I think this is the thing. Whenever you're in business, you can't always anticipate the bump, but you have to find a way of navigating. So I get bumped every day of the week. There
Yeah.
might be a client phone up and say, "I decided to go direct to my bank because they're offering me a better rate." Client, a house fall through, and you're thinking, "Crikey, I could have done with that." So I think there's real positives to being self-employed. It gives me a great balance around childcare. It gives me a great balance around doing things in life, and the amount of application I can put in directly impacts my income. But yeah, sure, there's been bumps, and there are bumps every day of the week. This isn't this uh, a stress-free thing to do when you're self-employed.
Mm,
But I've got to be honest, like friends of mine who are employed, and I just think I wouldn't I wouldn't want to be every day, or put into taken in for meetings of news and this and that. It's not how I feel business should be run. Um,
yeah.
so I wouldn't change being self-employed for anything, but certainly navigating those bumps. You've got to grow up, skin, at least get a bit about where you are and what you do.
Yeah. There are certainly there are pros and cons to running a business,
Yeah,
aren't there? There's,
yeah,
obviously, yeah, you're on your own. Uh, it's all on you,
yeah,
but you do have that freedom. You do have that flexibility.
yeah. There's
Um,
some real positives to say. Like it's both a absolute challenge. It's actually a challenge as well. I think I wouldn't be able to lead the life that I do if I was an employed. I wouldn't be able to see my as often. I wouldn't be able to do the things that I want on a
mm,
daily basis. Because you can to an office 9 till 5, and I just don't think that's next day
yeah.
anymore. Yeah, it's super positive in many ways, but obviously there are always without I've learned very quickly to stay very level because you get a good deal coming from the door, you can get very excited. You don't know what the next thing is going to be, so you've got to be just as pushed to the middle line as possible.
Yeah, I guess it can be hard if you kind of put, or you invest, yourself in hoping, oh, I'm going to get that deal or something,
Yeah,
and if it falls through, it must be devastating, or at least
it is.
a real
Yeah,
blow.
it
Yeah,
is. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's how you dust yourself off for those blows, really. So I've got a rule, a 20-minute rule, like
a
being no
20-minute
more than
rule. Did you say?
yeah,
Yeah,
be annoyed and upset about it for 20 minutes, and then find something to move the needle again.
Yeah.
Like,
Just move
yeah,
on.
absolutely be creative, but unless you can physically change what happened, i.e., phone the client and renegotiate the deal, or phone the estate agent and try and massage the deal across the line, genuinely do something to change it. 20 minutes, move on.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not.
But presumably, if everything does work out and it, the deal works and
Yeah,
the customer's happy, the client's happy,
yeah.
how does that feel for you?
Been a great feeling. I think like whenever I see that mortgage offer come through on any deal, it's always really, really positive. And I think that's the thing that keeps you going at it. Knowing that you're helping and changing that person's life. It is life-changing stuff.
There's
And
something, yeah, there's something very just significant about homes, isn't there? It's
yeah,
different to buying a car or something
yeah,
else. I mean, obviously the value is very high, but um, home has such a powerful is such a powerful part of our lives, isn't it?
yeah. And that's it. I think that I've seen people literally change from moving into a particular,
Right.
physically change, more relaxed, more stress free. I've seen people uh, going through that whole cycle of life of moving into a property as a first time buyer. Next time you speak to them, they've got a couple of kids, or they've
Mm.
got one on the way, and it's genuinely to be involved in that life cycle is life changing work. Um, but it's important. Like, at the end of the day, it's not something they can just earn in return. It's a real sort of sometimes very fulfilling role to be in that situation.
Yeah. Because you're helping them in a really big way. This is sort of whole a lot of people, all this financial stuff is just very, very scary, and yeah, people they just don't know what to do, and there's so
Yeah,
many
absolutely.
different products out there, and just to have someone to take their hand through that process. I mean, house moving is stressful enough, isn't it? I mean, the
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
whole process is incredibly stressful, but to have someone with you in that must be really just such a relief.
Yeah, and it's often a first for those people. And we've got to remember that as advisors, we deal with this every day of the week. That
Yeah.
might be their first or their first remortgage. It might be their first extension. It might be their first home move after living in a property they bought with a partner for the first time years before. So there's often a lot of firsts go on there, and
Mm.
kind of I think some advisors get a bit complacent about it, and they sort of see it as, oh, it's just another transaction, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
more than that. As I say, that is remove that burden as far as possible and help them and guide them towards that positive end. That's worth its weight in gold. It really is. Well, I wish it was worth its weight, worth it, but
Yeah.
truthfully, it does make you feel good about doing the job.
Yeah. Yeah. And on a kind of similar note, um, what what do you do about or how do you kind of take care of your mental health? Because running a business is stressful. It's all on you,
Yeah.
um, and you don't have people you can talk to necessarily. So what do you do about your mental health?
So there's a couple of things that I do. Obviously, I my best to keep that. So if I've got client calls to make and I don't need to be on my laptop, I'll go for a walk and make them.
Yeah.
Um, try and get outside as often as possible. So go for a walk or go to the gym, whatever it means. So keeping active is really, really important, but also
Mm.
keeping engaged. I think, when you are a solo business owner and you're wearing all the hats, you're right. The level of stress is high, especially when you look at it and think, right, you've got a mortgage next month, and there's just money to cover it today. And that does happen even in the biggest businesses. They unless you're managing cash flow effectively and I'm really dialing into that stuff, it's a very scary place. And I've had my fair share of sleepless nights over it. I
Mm.
think that's the crux when we were going through the changes of downscaling back, say taking myself and a team of 5 plus me right down to just, that was a really scary time because
Yeah.
you're effectively saying to people, well, I have to change something. And to take care of your mental health in that space, you need good people around you, you need good listening ears. And I'm fortunate I've got some good friends that are great. You pick the phone up to them and they'll that stuff through with you. And I've got some like really like accomplished business people that I stay in touch with and they
Yeah.
that equally give me that bit of reassurance. But I mean the level of failure in self-employment is high. And
Yeah.
that's because I think in part people will let stuff and they don't reach out for the appropriate help.
Mm.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? When
Yeah.
it's all on you, like it's it should be quite straightforward. Control what you can control. But when it is all on you, equally that means whatever move you make needs to be the right move, or it feels that way sometimes. It feels like there's a level of urgency. So
Mm.
you don't get an employment, you know. So yeah, to recap, love a little walk, chat to some friends, and just make sure that you take a bit of time for yourself. It's
Yeah.
very easy, especially in this world, to just sit at a laptop for 12 hours and just working just to try and get by. Um, but there's also a value proposition thing. One thing that I've really learned about my business in the last 12, 24 months is it very well having multiple people in the business and into a pot. But if one day when you wake up, life doesn't feel right, you need to take action. Not sit
Yeah.
back and let things roll away. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I made. I didn't on parcel why I ended up on my own rather than with at least a couple of people around me. So yeah, look after yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and it's I think it's good to remember that you're not alone. You're not on your own, even though sometimes you can feel like you're on your own as a small business owner. There are people out there that you can talk to. Obviously,
Yeah,
you can talk to your family, you can talk to friends, but there are probably people out there in the same industry or kind of an adjacent kind of or parallel industry that maybe you can talk to.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
also there's just loads of other professional, help that you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really tricky to think like when in our mortgage industry, and this is like an insider thing, but there's not always a lot of positivity because there's always something to moan about. There's always that, oh, the Bank of England has done this, the Treasurer has done that, yeah, the
Yeah.
government have done that. And so it can be a very negative place to be sometimes. So surrounding yourself with the right people is important. I think you're right. Other people in the industry, but equally other people outside the industry. I've got friends estate agents. I've got good friends that are mortgage advisors, and I'd rather hang out with the estate agents. They've often got a really good time on.
Right.
It's finding the right people to spend that time with. You're right. There is loads out there. I mean, one of the parts of work I do is I'm a signatory on the steering group for the Mortgage Health Charter. I did give back into industry, make
Mm.
people feel more support. So it's work like that really. Do that kind of just out of your head. If it supports someone else, then great.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any kind of plans for the future with the business? Have you sort of looked ahead, 1, 2,
Yeah.
5 years ahead? What are you thinking about that?
So we're really at a crossroads of business. I mean, as I say, things have been pretty tight. So there's a couple of things we can do. And I think the first thing is obviously we continue doing what we're doing in its current and make Sterling Southgate get it back to where it was, because good healthy amount of advisors, or you flip it to a lifestyle. And I think my gut is that this business is a lifestyle business now. I need
Right.
to fit it on my lifestyle. So for the next year, it's about building stability of income, and building relationships that have been, you know, not as well trusted due to sort of challenges over the last 12, 20. And then the following sort of 3 to 5 years after that, it's then assessing where the market is. We've got a lot of challenges coming our way as a market. So we've got AIs coming in and they're expecting that to sort of count 20% of the best market.
Right.
So
Okay.
my initial feeling is we diversify. So we move into slightly more specialist products. What I mean by that is we've got our regulated business, and then we have an unregulated business that deals with like loans and charges, all that kind of normally hand off to a third party. So I think there's again, this is an industry that can be adaptable.
Mm.
Um, and then maybe a sort of real estate edge in there as well. So I mean, in terms of planning, I think certainly with the current climate, it's very to plan
Mm.
because there's not a lot of stability in the industry. But certainly that's the aim for the next 12 months is to stabilize everything,
Yeah.
make it solid, and then have a good base from there. As I say, we don't need much when it's just me on my own. I need
Mm.
4 to 6 mortgages a month with action, and we're making a really good living without
Yeah.
any overhead. When you start bringing in people, the overhead increase, therefore you have to improve the proposition. So yeah, it's an interesting one, Jonathan. I think if you ask me truthfully, I'm not sure what 5 years looks like.
Mm.
Been
Is that a bit
working
too
this
far away, do you think?
Well, I think I've been working this business now for 5 years. I've seen it through its evolution into a really strong business, and then it going back into a completely different problem, right back to this. Very difficult to look at that when you're in business. You need to be realistic about it. And whilst the targets are, yes, I'd love to hit X amount of income and have X amount of X, Y, and Z, like that right now isn't the priority. The priority
Mm.
is realizing and trying to help people through the economic climate. When we're out the other side of it, absolutely. Stabilize for 12 months, we'll be out of it in the open. And then from there, we'll be able to really move the dial and start making some plans to either
The,
grow the business or
yeah.
have the right people around me
Yeah.
to, so I can just turn up, write the business and go on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of industries are kind of um, struggling to figure out what's going to be happening over the next few years because things like you say, like AI is going to be so disruptive across the board. I don't think we've quite been at this stage before, have we?
Well,
You
this
think
is
you've
the
always been
fourth.
able to have a vague sense of how things might go, but I feel like maybe at this point in time, it's really hard to predict.
This is the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI, it is the fourth industrial. But people have said this before. When mechanization came in and everyone used to work on farms, and then tractors started turning up doing all the heavy lifting, that put most of the farm workers out of a job.
Mm.
So then industries were created, like you know warehouses and factories. And all those people who used to work on farms went to work in the factory. Obviously, then the tech revolution came along. Need to work in factories because that's all being automated. They
Mm.
went to work from home and work on the laptop, the internet, and all these things. So now we're coming into the fourth industrial revolution, is obviously where tech on that, where it either I saw saw someone on what's it, but they were talking about this is either a tool to remove people from work or a tool to improve productivity. The general consensus is overall business owners wanted to improve productivity. I think
Mm.
we'll see the first $1 billion business built on 15, 20 staff, like in the next 2 to 5 years,
Yeah.
because of they'll be able to do so much of it lifting by just AI agents on task to remove that. My challenge, I think, here is where that progression role, so where people come in, used to come in at office junior, make the tea, do the copying, and then work your way through a business. A lot
Mm.
of those junior roles are going to be stripped out in
Mm.
favor of AI. So it's how we upskill ourselves, how we as either entrepreneurs or work get where we create value. That's it, right? If you're creating value, you're difficult to get rid of. And that's the
Definitely.
trick.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at our business and saying, well, if you've got really good income, no debt and a big deposit, you should be able to go online, use an AI agent mortgage advisor to turn that case around in an hour or two. Agent offer because they could.
Mm.
But if you've got J's, you've got multiple streams of income, you've got a really complex file of property, then no, I don't think AI can do it. I think what we're going to see is returning back to for going back into manual work and doing that. So almost a regression workforce, like a white collar to work, because that's where the value is going to be in people being hands on with it.
Yeah. 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 I think you're right. Interesting.
So if it's a
Mm.
job you can do with your hands and you have to move to a location, AI can't do that. If
No,
it's something sat at a desk
something
and
solid and physical. Yeah.
physical,
Yeah.
mechanics aren't worried, the plumbers aren't worried, the
No.
electricians aren't worried. They think that then their accountant might be able to speed things up a bit because they'll be using AI, but they aren't worried. Like a lot of people, like in the advertising space, the marketing space, financial services space, are worried because
Mm.
there are jobs that require a different skill. Um, and yes, there is interpersonal, but ultimately, with the way that how quick AI has expanded over the last, like the rapid formation of this is going to be huge, and it's going to shake up a lot of market, make sure that people are creating value.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we are. So that's my
Uh,
piece on AI anyway.
so, Jonathan, do you have any people in your life or people that you've used to know that kind of mentored you or helped you, on your path to business? Is there anyone you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some really, really good bosses in the past. Some people who have kind of been there at various stages through my career. Um, Interestingly, it's something that I've really sort of searched for since becoming self-employed, but I haven't found the appropriate person.
Mm.
There's a lot of there's a lot of people out there that want to sell you the dream for a course, in terms of mentorship, and there's other people I think that would just be they'll be there to listen to you and hear you out and give you guidance. So I don't got anyone strict, I would say, is a mentor. Um, but there's certainly lots of good people out there that are great to just bounce ideas off. And I think sometimes mentorship can come from a pool of people rather than an individual. So that's probably where I'm at with it. Yeah.
Mm. And what would you say to someone who has just started their own business or they're thinking about starting out by themselves? Is there any kind of any guidance or advice that you'd give them?
Stay consistent. So in terms of like turning up, doing the small tasks daily, every single day, and just make sure you've got your outreach and really look after your client
Mm.
customers. If you do those fundamentals, the rest come. And the other thing is know your numbers inside out. Know exactly how much you need to do, what that looks like, how many, in our case, how many mortgages we need to do to be able to make profit, and so on. I think there's those three things I would say would be the thing. So stay consistent, make sure you show up, turn up every single day. You've got to know your numbers for Pete's sake, know your numbers. It's the absolute fundamental. But equally, have a bit of fun with it along the way. It's
Mm.
it's it's not all meant to be serious. Yeah, there can be really fantastic, and it is often very, very good moments.
Yeah.
And you do it for a reason, whether that's more freedom, whether that's more money, whatever it needs to be. Just keep that in mind whenever you're going through a tough time. If it's a good spell, great, enjoy it. If it's not so good spell, just remember the reasons you do it. And it's a stay consistent. That's the most important.
Yeah, consistency, definitely agree with that. Absolutely. I was going to ask a slightly different question before we finish. How do you find more clients? What do you do about networking? What do you do about getting out there? Because that's always, I think that's one of the key challenges for any small business is how do you get the work in?
I can tell you I can tell you straight off the bat now where we are at the moment. I mean, we've gone right back to basics.
Hmm.
A lot of our clients have gone with previous advisors or they've gone elsewhere. So we are really starting from the start here.
Yeah.
So again, it's visibility. Be as visible in your local market, depending on what you do. If it's a local, regional, national market, whatever it is, but be as visible as possible in your craft. Use social media. Get video content out there on social media, and just give as much value as you can based on your experience,
Hmm.
and then people will start to recognize it. But turn up like one of the best advertising examples I've seen, or best ways to get business I've seen, is being on the school run in your branded club.
Oh,
People
right.
don't know
Yeah.
what people do. People don't know what you do. So unless you're actively marketing it by walking around like a human billboard, ultimately, then they're never going to know. So when I moved to this area, to Willand in Devon, I put banners up near the local co-op and at various places because we're starting afresh. I want people to know when they see me on the school run or wherever they see me, that's the guy who does mortgages. So
Yeah.
you've got to be as visible as possible, and make good connections with other like-minded professionals in the area. So if you've got fear, so in our world, it's accountants, it's estate agents, all the accountants, all the solicitors, all the estate agents in the local area know who you are. If they don't know who you
Hmm.
are, they're never going to refer to
No.
you. So we can sometimes sit here in our bedrooms and be siloed and think, why isn't any business coming in? Well,
Hmm.
you haven't been outside today. When I go to the gym, I talk about what they do at the gym, find out what they're doing, and we've got connections on the back of that. We've got connections off of people we know on the school run doing their mortgages. That is quick, easy business. Know, like, and trust you. They know they've got common ground with you immediately.
Hmm.
So that'd be really to start out. If you're starting to get clients, want to get clients, there is a slow burn to that stuff. You'll be surprised how quickly those conversations escalate. I was having a chat with a guy in the gym the other day. His sister's there. Brilliant, excellent. Going for coffee at good. Might know clients to help out with business. So
Hmm.
just be visible, as visible as possible in your local market. If you can, a lot of people when they start a business, well, actually, if you just come from your postcode, there's a damn sight more business in that area than you actually already think. So own that area, then think about expanding elsewhere.
Yeah. I agree. That's good advice. Definitely. Yeah. Well, on that note, how would people find you online if they were interested in connecting with you? What's the best
Well,
way of
I
coming
mean,
across
if you're
you?
interested in connecting with me, then you can find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Southgate on LinkedIn. You can find the business, Sterling Southgate, Erling Southgate. And we're most prolific on Instagram. So
Right.
Instagram, Sterling Southgate. You'll find us there. But equally, if anyone wants to reach out, I mean, Justin, you've got my mobile number, my email address. If anyone wants to reach out and chat, I'm always happy to help and guide where I can.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely put the links in the description. So if people want to
Thanks.
follow you that way, then they'll be there as well. So
Great.
brilliant. Okay, well, thanks, Jonathan. It's been a really good chat today. I
Thanks
really
very much.
appreciate your time and
No worries.
sharing your wisdom and your experiences. Yeah, I just wish you well for your business for the rest of
2026 and beyond,
for the
right?
rest
Yeah,
of
there we are. Good
2026.
stuff.
Yeah, may it go really well. So
Thank you very much. I
thanks a lot,
appreciate it,
Jonathan.
Justin. All right, you
No
take care now,
worries.
yeah?
See
Cheers.
you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Better Business Podcast, brought to you by Farsight Films and Utility Warehouse. Farsight Films creates memorable video content for your business that helps you stand out and get noticed. Get in touch now to find out how Farsight can help boost your video marketing strategy today. Utility Warehouse is an award-winning provider of comprehensive utility services that bundles all your utilities into one, helping you to save money. Get in touch for a no-obligation 15-minute consultation that could bring you significant annual savings. Check out the QR codes on screen or click the links in the description to find out more. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. All the best, and keep building a better business.